Good evening, everybody. Breaking tonight, the swamp may be getting a little deeper in Washington. Neither the House Speaker nor the Senate Majority Leader is particularly gifted beyond their capacity for deceit. Successfully passing tax reform, it turns out both the Senate and House have quietly altered tax legislation to accommodate not America first, but illegal immigrants, while boosting DACA, the program giving amnesty to children brought to this country by their illegal immigrant parents. President Trump campaigned against DACA. Today, we learned that the tax bill was crafted to give illegal immigrants the ability to claim the new higher child tax credits under tax reform. The Senate endorsed DACA amnesty as it confirmed Kirstjen Nielsen to lead the Department of Homeland Security. The former aide to Chief of Staff John Kelly. Nielsen is on record as backing DACA. In fact, she said, quote, "We owe illegal immigrants a permanent fix to DACA. The swamp may be nearing flood stage well before it can be drained. As is often said about Washington, it's a damn shame. The denizens of the swamp have no shame, and they have such a high regard for themselves." How's it all going to play out? Well, no one knows for sure, of course. But we do have some of the best guessers in the country to join us tonight to help us see the unforeseeable. We'll talk about the gutless Republican leadership tonight with our special guests, former Trump campaign officials Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie. Also tonight, a disgraced Democrat stepping down from Congress. Congressman John Conyers says he's retiring, but he is endorsing his son to take his seat. Yes, it apparently works that way in the swamp. Conyers has a new accuser stepping forward as well. It seems Conyers saw no reason to slow down just because he was in church. We'll be telling you all about that. And Southern California firefighters have quite enough to fight. They're battling a wildfire that is raging out of control, fighting the fast-moving brush fire. It's scorched some 50,000 acres already. Winds as high as 60 miles an hour, forcing tens of thousands of Ventura County residents to flee their homes. We'll have the very latest from Ventura County and those wildfires here tonight. Our top story, the deeply conflicted special counsel and the refusal of the Justice Department to respond to the House Intelligence Committee's oversight questions. It is a crisis, perhaps of constitutional proportions, at hand. And neither the Speaker of the House nor the Senate Majority Leader is speaking publicly about the impending collision. Another stunning development tonight, Judicial Watch releasing new Justice Department records that show Robert Mueller's top deputy, Andrew Weissmann, lavishing praise on former acting Attorney General Sally Yates as she fought the president's travel ban. Weissmann boldly congratulated the Obama leftover after she refused to defend President Trump's travel ban. Weissmann wrote the acting Attorney General an email on the night of January 30th in which he wrote, quote, "I am so proud and in awe. Thank you so much. All my deepest respects," end quote. The disclosure of another instance of energetic anti-Trump conduct follows confirmation that a top Mueller investigator, FBI official Peter Strzok, was reassigned by the special counsel over the summer. That after writing anti-Trump text to an FBI attorney with whom he was romantically involved. Strzok has now been relegated to the FBI's version of the New York City teachers solution called the Rubber Room, the Human Resources Department of the FBI. Strzok has not been fired, or as far as we know, even reprimanded, despite his politically motivated actions and obvious taint of the entire special counsel investigation, as he worked as a top official in most of the Clinton corruption cases and the investigation of General Michael Flynn. That should be enough, don't you think? And the Justice Department today issued the first financial cost report for Mueller's witch hunt. It totals almost $7 million over just about 5 months. Still no evidence of collusion, nor has there been any evidence of collusion or obstruction after almost 2 years of investigation by first the FBI, then the congressional committees, and the special counsel. The swamp runneth over. Our first guest tonight says the documented gross conflicts of interest and the numerous instances of professional misconduct have completely delegitimized the special counsel, and they should now be the subjects of a criminal investigation themselves. Joining us tonight is Chris Farrell. He's Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. Chris, good to have you with us. This is absolutely stomach-turning to watch unfold. Strzok, not fired, not reprimanded, not demoted, sent to the HR department of the FBI.
Arguably, he should have been arrested and arraigned. This level of misconduct is not merely, bending the rules. This is an effort, at least in my opinion, at subverting justice. This is a beyond sort of a negligence or a lack of attention. This is willfully twisting and turning investigations, whether it's the Hillary Clinton email server, whether it's General Flynn. This kind of misconduct goes beyond, whoops, I made a mistake. Well, this is a deliberate, willful act, and arguably this is a guy who should be arrested and arraigned, perhaps released on bail, but these are crimes. This is not administrative error or an unfortunate mistake.
And as a top official of the FBI, we also see the top officials of Robert Mueller's special counsel. I mean, Andrew Weissman, we all knew that he was an absolutely committed Clinton supporter, zealot, whatever you want to call him. But to see the level of his conflict within the special counsel team is appalling. 9 of the members of the 17 attorneys in that prosecution, that investigation and prosecution, presumably, are Democrats, and there's not a single Republican, a known Republican, amongst the other attorneys and prosecutors.
And Mueller himself is a self-professed buddy and fan of Comey.
Right.
And so Comey, arguably as their first sort of cooperating witness, although he himself has violated the law repeatedly, he's the one who tried to invoke or create the circumstances for Mueller to be appointed in the first place. That in and of itself disqualifies Mueller. He should have resigned months ago because of this conflict of interest.
Well, the should-haves, Chris, are mounting up. The shouldas, I don't quite understand why the shouldas aren't taking place.
Yeah,
we have a Justice Department that seems to be absolutely innervated. Perhaps its leadership, the part that is not corrupt, is simply neutralized. I don't know. But I do know that those who should be performing oversight over the special counsel are quite literally unable to act. The Speaker of the House, the Senate Majority Leader, the heads of the Judiciary Committees of the Senate and the House, the Intelligence Committees, my God, where are they and why aren't they acting when this is in full view of every person who will not avert their eyes?
And let me tell you, when it comes to the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General, anyone who's holding out hope that they're going to do something, forget about it.
Yeah, we've been through that.
I have firsthand knowledge of that because of a case of gross corruption in El Paso, Texas. We went down with an investigative counsel and 2 special agents. They did everything they could to turn a blind eye. I offered them 2 sworn law enforcement officers to provide firsthand testimony. They didn't want to interview them. Yeah. What I had to do was fly them to Washington on Judicial Watch's dime and present them to the Inspector General to make them take testimony. That's how bad it is.
And there's an Inspector General at work in the State Department. There's an Inspector General working in the DNI. There's an Inspector General in the Justice Department within the FBI itself. At this point, all we have ever seen produced by a OIG report, if we got to the point of a conclusion and actually did see a report, was nothing. They have been used to obfuscate, to divert, and it's where truth and responsibility and accountability go to die. In each of those departments, the FBI itself, I mean, I had to laugh. Christopher Wray sending out a booster letter, a cheerleading note to 35,000 employees of the FBI to tell them they're wonderful when they, the leaders of that wonderful group of people, are absolutely destroying the reputation of the FBI and may have made the FBI an irretrievably corrupt organization.
And it's corrosive to the American public's trust in law enforcement. The average person looks at this whole scenario and says, well, obviously laws are for the little people, and the FBI and Department of Justice are out of control. There's no real check. They know that they would never be treated that way. And that is so corrosive to the whole idea of equal justice under the law, of somebody getting a fair shake in the legal process. No ordinary citizen believes that when they look at the cast of characters involved in this, to include, of course, you know, I think Exhibit A is Hillary Clinton.
I want to turn very quickly to today's events, which obviously in Judicial Watch. Let's talk about first Deutsche Bank and the reports from a number of news organizations that the special counsel had subpoenaed the financial records of the President of the United States at Deutsche Bank.
And I think it remains unclear the specifics or the details of that. But I'll tell you, if that is, assuming that's true, and I'm not willing to really do that, but for the sake of argument, you know, if the president in his private capacity as a businessman was running his business or obtaining backing, financial backing or business debt from Deutsche Bank, that's actually quite a high recommendation. What it says is that the Germans were willing to back or in some way hold debt on various real estate projects. And frankly, that's a very high commendation for a business. The German Deutsche Bank itself, you know, they're not going to throw their money around recklessly, hardly that. And so if it's a fishing expedition on the part of Mr. Mueller with respect to the president's private business transactions before becoming president, it's very odd. And in a way, it's sort of counterintuitive because if the Germans are holding that debt, it's a good thing.
You're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it amounts to zero. It's not the first time, frankly.
Well, you know, as we continue, as we watch this, the progress of this special counsel, is there in your mind any hope whatsoever, the people who actually have the power to rein in this special counsel who is obviously completely and utterly compromised by the political conflicts within his own organization, political conflicts with the President of the United States? Is there any hope here that we're going to see true justice, that we're going to see those individuals, the Speaker, the Majority Leader, and the committee heads, the chairman of the Judiciary Committees of both houses, the Intelligence Committees, pull back and say this has got to stop? The Deputy Attorney General of the Justice Department, Rod Rosenstein, say enough. This has got to end. Let's either have a redo or let's drop this now.
I held very little faith or confidence in the so-called leadership of the Republican Party. I don't see that happening from the Hill. I see other forces or pressure being brought to bear. Frankly, the sorts of disclosures we made today. I see people who are professionals in the law enforcement world look at the Flynn pleading, or when he pled out, and notice that there's no conspiracy count. He pled out to 18 U.S.C. 1001, which is false official statement, but there's no conspiracy count. And anyone in law enforcement, anybody who's a U.S. attorney or district attorney knows that not having a conspiracy count in there tells you there's no crime. There's no other person with whom he conspired. But nonetheless,
the beat goes on.
It's a fatal flaw. It's a fatal flaw.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it is one that results in the abandonment of this fool's mission on the part of the special counsel. Chris Farrell.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're coming right back. Much more straight ahead. It was a busy day. Stay with us. More clear conflicts of interest in Robert Mueller's witch hunt. Why aren't Republican leaders in the Senate and the House calling for the special counsel to be shut down? Why isn't the Justice Department holding Mueller to account? We take that up with former Trump campaign officials Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie And oh yes, they have a brand new book with a great idea. Let Trump be Trump. In a state of emergency declared in Southern California, 60-mile-an-hour winds and a massive wildfire is now burning out of control. Tens of thousands forced to flee Ventura County. We'll have the full report for you and much more. Straight ahead, stay with us. Disgraced Congressman John Conyers says he'll leave Congress, but he wants to keep the seat in the family, which I thought was awfully generous of him. The Michigan Democrat said in a radio interview that he will resign after the thing with Nancy Pelosi, when she called him an icon. That didn't work out for him. So he's endorsing his son for a special election. At least 7 women, by the way, say they witnessed Conyers behaving in a sexual conduct awful manner. The latest accuser says he was, I guess the way, inappropriately touching her during church. The Republican National Committee is once again backing Roy Moore in the Alabama Senate race, but these things are complicated. So far, even though they returned to their support of Judge Roy Moore, their support is a little modest when you add up the money. The RNC is only giving Judge Roy Moore $50,000 and providing no additional staff, according to the reporting of Talking Points memo. And Rhino Senator Jeff Flake, I'm going to miss him, today choosing to back the Democrat in the race, Doug Jones. Golly, you got to admire a man that independent. He cut Jones a $100 check. I didn't say that Flake was generous, but he put in $100 and then said, I thought with modest understatement, country over party. Joining me now, former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski and former Trump campaign aide David Bossie, both great Americans and co-authors of the new book, Let Trump Be Trump, an inside account of the Trump campaign released today, and the two of you should know better than anyone. Great to have you here. Congratulations on the book, which we recommend to you highly, I must say.
Thank you.
Let's start with what's going on today. This narrative of a collusion seems to be giving way in the left-wing national media and the Dems to something about obstruction of justice. I mean, it's hard to stay up with their program.
Lou, where is the accountability for an FBI officer who didn't take Hillary Clinton's statement under oath, who changed the writing of what the narrative should be if she should be prosecuted, who interviewed Huma Abedin and had to be removed from the special prosecutor's office months ago, and we're just learning about it now.
In secret.
In secret.
In secret by the special counsel who's supposed to investigate things like secret things. I mean, this is ridiculous. Mueller is running a Keystone special counsel investigation, don't you think? I mean, it's really a sad, terrible joke on the American people. We're paying right now $7 million, 5 months in. We got a lot of time.
It's $7 million, but you made an important point. That doesn't include all the congressional committees as well. That's about $7 additional million. We're going to be close to $15 million spent of taxpayer money. A year and a half this investigation's been going on. Not one scintilla of evidence, not one iota of evidence that there's any collusion, cooperation, anything to do between the Trump campaign and the Russians. And that's what this was about.
And there's a spirited debate, as you both know. I love the fact that the attorneys can't even decide whether or not collusion would actually be a problem, even if there were collusion, again, which there is not. As we watch, my favorite person in all of this has been Senator Richard Bure of North Carolina. He chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee, and he said they called the press together, he and the ranking Democrat, which is not a very high rank, Mark Warner, and they telling the press, come over, they got a big announcement. Which ended up being that they're going to expand the investigation after having found nothing. Said he would like to share with you preliminary findings of their 6-month-long investigation, but they didn't find anything, so they couldn't. I mean, it gets worse and worse. How, in the campaign, did you ever expect that you would see this kind of a frontal assault on the President of the United States from the Dems, from the GOP establishment, from the deep state, the intelligence community, one and the same?
Lou, it's amazing to me that when the president launched the campaign, they said it wasn't a real campaign, he'll never be successful. Yeah. What's also amazing to me is Dianne Feinstein, the ranking Democrat in the Senate Judiciary Committee, has said there is no evidence whatsoever that she has seen that there's been any cooperation. But the Democrats poo-poo her. Don't worry, Dianne. Don't worry about that. We're going to keep going forward. Look, the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee has found no evidence, and she's on the Intelligence Committee, of any collusion, cooperation, or coordination because it doesn't exist. I was there, Lou. It doesn't exist.
And let me ask you, your book, I think it's terrific. I think it's, by the way, I love the messaging. It's pretty straightforward. Even I can pick up on it. Let Trump be Trump. The fact is there are a lot of people trying to keep Trump from being Trump. They've kind of walled him off a little bit there, but they're also having some pretty good success.
Look, the president got elected by being true to himself and who he is.
Right.
He led a movement last year to defeat the corrupt Hillary Clinton campaign. They had 900 people over there in Brooklyn. We had a very small, dedicated
band
group.
of renegades. I love it.
Well, we were, and but the president understood and had his finger on the pulse of the American people. He understood what he needed to do, and that's what he's been doing ever since. In the deep state, those folks that are the career politicians in Washington on both sides of the aisle don't like him because he's a change agent. He's come to Washington.
He's having great success. We're jammed for time, but I've got to ask you this because of what's happening. DACA. The president has obviously changed his mind. Ryan and McConnell are pushing through. They want it. Flake sitting by the president's side, you know, whispering.
Before or after he wrote the check?
Well, I love the fact that he put country above party. You know, you could tell right away he was the man who was used to making that choice, and usually, I think, not in the favor of this country. But this is an issue of the country. The wall isn't built. DACA is still alive. And both things are foundation promises by this president.
Lou, this is a president who says he's going to get the wall done, and where we are now, he's finally moved forward, getting some of that work finally started. Hold
that thought, because we're going to extend our conversation with Mr. Bossie and Mr. Lewandowski, and we'll have that answer right after I tell you about what happened on Wall Street. Stocks moved lower. We didn't even know that those indexes could go lower. The Dow down 109 points, the S&P down 10, the Nasdaq down 13. Volume on the big board, 3.5 billion shares. We're still sitting at about $6 trillion more than when President Trump was elected. A reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, the president prevailing against attacks from the GOP establishment, the Dems, the deep state. How's he done it? More with Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie next. I've got a great idea for the title. Let Trump be Trump. We'll be right back. Back with me now, Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie. The book is Let Trump Be Trump. We're talking about where this president is headed. He's got a special counsel chewing at his ankles every minute, chewing at his ankles, but nonetheless trying to subvert his presidency. There's no two ways about it. The Dems are doing precisely the same thing. What does he need to do? Where the hell are his attorneys? Where the hell are the junkyard dogs that can plant their teeth in some of these folks who don't have proper respect for a sitting president?
I think, first of all, the tax reform package that was passed by the Senate on Friday is a good first step, Lou. I think that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back in that Congress.
No, I think that's one problem, problem solved. I agree with you.
And
where are those junkyard dogs?
But if he gets that, he can empower some people to go get more done. I think victory begets more victories, and that's what I think this president understands. He's needed that one big win. He hasn't had it yet. I want him to have it before Christmas.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I don't think that this was essential to him at all. It was essential to the salvation of Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. But this president already has an economy growing at over 3%. I mean, you go through the statistics, you got a country that's glad to wake up in the morning instead of hang their head, as we did for 8 years with the previous president who told us we were flawed and fatally so, not exceptional. The hell with that stuff. Let's go get them.
The mainstream media is never going to give this president the credit he deserves. $5 trillion in new stock market values, unemployment rate, the lowest it's been in a lifetime, home ownership, the highest it's been in 2 generations. No credit for that whatsoever.
Ripping all they want to do, regulatory structure.
Oh, just 20 to 1. Every new regulation that's put in, 20 are gone. Saving taxpayers billions of dollars. The economy's grown like gangbusters.
Where are the
No credit.
junkyard dogs?
You need animals, Lou. You need killers down there, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. You need the guys down there who are fighting every day for the core values, because you have to remember, Washington, D.C. is a swamp. They want nothing to get done. And this president, all he wants to do is change. He wants to bring change to Washington and needs to make sure the people who are around him are bringing that change with him.
Let me just say, he's got 2 junkyard dogs right here, and we're on the outside helping him as much as we can, delivering his message, delivering the good news of what he has done and what he's accomplished every minute of the day. This book, Let Trump Be Trump, is part of that good news to remind people exactly the successes that he's had and the movement that he led that got us here.
What's the name of the book again?
It's easy. Let Trump be Trump. It's worked for him his whole life.
And it looks like it's working pretty well for you guys, too. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I know it's working real well for the country. We'll be right back. The book is Let Trump Be Trump. It's on sale online, bookstores, everywhere. We're coming right back with much, much more. And yes, we will be talking about this book a lot for weeks and weeks to come. Stay with us. We'll be right back. President Trump reiterating his full support for Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore.
I think he's going to do very well. We certainly don't want to have a liberal Democrat that's controlled by Nancy Pelosi and controlled by Chuck Schumer. We don't want to have that for Alabama.
Alabama's special election is only 1 week away, and the Republican establishment has just decided that they want to win the thing. We take that up with Charlie Hurt. And this 12-year-old boy celebrating his birthday on a boat with his friends when his party has an extra special guest, a surprise visitor. We'll show you the birthday surprise. Stay with us. We're coming right back with that video and much more. Congress making some changes, stealthy changes to tax reform legislation that will continue to allow illegal immigrants to claim the child tax credit, a $2,000 benefit under the new legislation. As it stands now, this may surprise you, filers don't have to list their own Social Security number to claim the tax credit as long as the child has one. That's quite something when you think about it, a tax credit that has no relationship to the tax you're paying. Joining me now, Washington Times opinion editor, Fox Business contributor, Charlie Hurt. Charlie, great to have you with us. Are you astonished that the House and the Senate are doing these sort of backdoor, dead of night kind of deals?
Sadly, Lou, I am not in the least bit surprised. It's the way this place has been operating going back decades. And, you know, the only people, up until Donald Trump's election, the only people who didn't have a warrior on their side lobbying for them in this town were the forgotten people that Donald Trump represented, and who came out and in such force in the last election and put him in the White House.
How big I know that the president is struggling with DACA. It's clear.
Yeah.
And he's got Flake sitting far too close to him for anything other than to create the suspicion that here we go. Perhaps again is the way to say that. What are your thoughts about DACA, the political impact if he does go ahead with his form of amnesty?
Well, I do think it's kind of interesting. As soon as Donald Trump made the moves that he made earlier this year, we suddenly had everybody coming out of the woodwork, both Democrats and Republicans, saying that, oh, no, we love the Dreamers. We want to legalize all the Dreamers. Apparently, all of these people were in total lockstep agreement for years over this, yet they don't do anything. And in a lot of ways, that's as damning as their love affair with illegal immigrants, is the fact that they don't ever do anything. And the reason they leave all these problems unsolved is because if they solve the problem, they don't have something to complain and moan about.
What about the wall? What are the penalties if the wall isn't built? Because it's starting to look like.
Oh, I think there are tremendous penalties. I think that, and remember, Lou, a lot of, the thing about this wall, and the reason that I've always loved the wall, and the reason that Donald Trump always talks about the wall, is because the wall it's like rubbing a dog's nose in the carpet after they mess in the carpet. The wall is rubbing Congress's face in the border, reminding them that for 30 years they refused to do what they promised voters for 30 years, 40 years that they would do, which is get control of illegal immigration. Of course, they're happy to give everybody amnesty because they love that. Yeah. But in terms of actually doing something to stop the problem, again, they don't want to solve the problem, because if they solve the problem, they don't have anything to raise money on and campaign about. And so what's so beautiful about this wall, and why I do think that we will see some form of a wall, I don't think Donald Trump will stop until he sees it, is because it's just grinding the nose of Congress into the border and hitting Congress with a newspaper, saying, just as a nasty reminder, this is what you failed to do.
Well, the country is quite used to being lied to, being disappointed. I mean, really, it's one of the reasons why President Obama seemed the perfect president for 8 years. He was sort of delivering the failure after failure that we'd come to expect and condensing it into one presidency. This president was about hope, about real belief that we're going to see something different. And what we're seeing right now is a president who was elected as a fighter, who is being pummeled every day by the left-wing media, that is being pummeled by his own party, the establishment, the deep state, the intelligence community. It's all but inexplicable, other than the fact that these people only want it one way, and that one way is amnesty. That one way is illegal immigrants, not a middle class that's healthy and growing, not manufacturing jobs, not 4% economic growth. This is a president who is anti-historical in the sense he is something new and fresh, and I don't think the country can stand another disappointment, the likes of which would result from no wall, amnesty, and more of the same.
And just look at this decision about moving the capital of Israel back to Jerusalem, where it belongs.
Right.
You know, this is people around here. Their heads have exploded. Their hair is on fire. They're in such shock that he would do this. But we've had this problem, the immediate problem, for 40 years. The larger problem for thousands of years. And you know, if doing the same thing doesn't get you anywhere, why not try something different? And that's what I love about the guy, is he's willing to try something different
and succeed.
And succeed.
And you just worry that, frankly, that there's so many of the usual suspects now surrounding him that he may forget that this is a mortal fight and a struggle for the soul of the country. Charlie Hurt, always good to have you with us.
Thanks, Lou. Good to be with you.
Thanks so much. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. Do you believe the evidence of political bias within Special Counsel Mueller's office has become so sweeping that the Department of Justice and Congress now have no other ethical choice but to take action? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. We'd like to hear from you. Please roll the video now. A 12-year-old boy from Iceland enjoying a truly special birthday party thanks to this party crasher. It's a humpback whale completely breaching the surface just feet away from the thrilled boy and all of his celebrating friends. What a way to celebrate your birthday, and happy birthday. And good going, whale. Up next, wildfires raging in Southern California. Thousands of people are being forced to evacuate, tens of thousands. In fact, we'll have a live report for you from Ventura, California, here next. Wow.